If you could please tap away that phone screen. We are going to have guests on like we do almost every day, like we have done over the past month now of consistent streaming. And we're going to talk about whether or not abortion is justified. The very first question that I will ask, if I can get it out before a guest asks me a question, which is fine, I'm happy to answer any questions that people may have for me, is how do you justify abortion? Justice being that classic virtue about rendering to each what they are owed, giving to one their due. How does abortion reflect that virtue? That's what I'm looking for. And I think that when it comes to governing, when it comes to making decisions, that justice is paramount in everything that we do. If you act in unjust ways, if you treat yourself in an unjust way, if you don't give yourself the dignity that you're owed as a human being, you're going to frustrate yourself. You're actually going to harm yourself by not doing what is good, what is just. And so, it's really important to consider justice. It is certainly important to treat other people with justice as well. Because while justice is going to benefit your own life, it's going to work to perfect you, it's not just about you. You are a political animal. And you are called to love your neighbor, to love each other, to be selfless to some extent. And that's a really good thing. That's a beautiful thing. And there's lots to enjoy in that reality. And certainly, when it comes to your own children, you should treat them in a certain way. Especially because you're children, but first and foremost because they are a unique individual human organism that is due their respect. And by doing all of this, it's a full circle. It actually comes back to benefit you again. By caring for other people, by doing what is selfless, by loving each other, by caring for your children. It's not just about them now. That actually helps you. That perfects you. That gives you fulfillment. And that's what it's all about, baby. So, if you want to justify abortion, request to join. Let's have a conversation. For everybody else, if you could please tap away that phone screen. I do appreciate you being here. We're going to have a few conversations, and then I'm going to jump off, and I'm going to go over to Twitter to talk about the evil of contraception. That is correct. If you're looking for the link to that space, then first of all, you should be in the Discord server. But if you're not and you want to join that space, join the Discord server. It's discord.gg/James. I've sent an announcement that links to that space. I'm going to be talking to some wonderful people about the issue of contraception, and I'll be giving some of my thoughts on it as well, of course. And so I would love to have you there. Okay, let's move on to the first individual and hear what they have to say. Nova, hello.
Hello.
Hi. How do you justify abortion?
How do I justify abortion? I believe I should have been aborted. 100%.
You believe you should have been aborted, but how do you justify the action of abortion?
Because I'm getting there. Let me explain. Give me a second. Hold on. So I believe I should have been aborted. I'm not depressed. I am perfectly happy. I love my life. I love everything that's going on in it. But I also have chronic health conditions, and that is because both of my parents are crackheads. I don't believe
very
that
sorry
they
to hear
should have
that.
been allowed. I don't believe that they should have been allowed to bring me in the world, and if they were smart enough, they wouldn't have brought me into the world, because then my quality of life would not have been decreased, and I would be a very healthy human if I was born and my soul was put into somebody else's baby.
Nova, first of all, I'm happy you're here. I'm glad that you weren't aborted. I am very sorry that you have been brought in to such tremendous disorder, to have parents that have such high levels of concupiscence within the way that they act, I think is disgusting and not good for you. But ultimately, what you just said does not justify abortion. At the heart of abortion, in principle, is unaliving an innocent, flourishing human child. And so nowhere in anything that you just said did you address the point that it is good or it is just to give a child death. You just simply said that you don't want to be here today, which is tragic, and I'm sorry that you feel that way. I'm glad that you're here, but you have to actually justify the action.
I didn't say not want to be here. I didn't say I didn't do it. I appreciate my life.
You're breaking up.
But
It's hard to hear you. You got red bars.
Why it's not.
It's okay. It's just lost connection. And she's gone. Okay. We will move to the next individual and hear what they have to say. I'm glad that she was not aborted. Leah, hello.
Hi.
Hi. How do you justify abortion?
So I don't believe any person, born or unborn, has the right to my body to sustain their own life. It is a principle of bodily autonomy, and I believe it is just and justified to deny any person, again, born or unborn, access to my resources without my permission.
What is bodily autonomy?
The right and ability to dictate what happens to your physical person as a whole.
Is there potential for you to use your body in an unjust way? Is that possible?
Sure, but not in the case of abortion.
And should we protect your ability to use your body in an unjust way?
No, but I've already said that this is justifiable because you are protecting your own bodily autonomy. If you use
But I don't think that you understand what I just said. You said bodily
understand.
autonomy is the ability to decide what you do with your body. Using that definition, I asked you, is it possible to use your body using this idea of bodily autonomy in an unjust way? And you just said yes.
No,
so under your definition of the right, you can act in an unjust way.
No. Not you said, is it possible to use your body to do something unjust? I said yes. Is it possible to do something unjust in defense of your bodily autonomy? I do not think so. You are allowed to protect your bodily autonomy, protect your resources. There's no person alive, born or unborn, that has that right. My issue with
But the problem is that
argument,
the idea of bodily autonomy in itself allows for unjust things to occur. That you have said that you believe in a right to bodily autonomy, which means that you have the ability to do what you want with your body, correct? That is the definition of bodily autonomy under your view.
I have the ability to protect my bodily autonomy by exercising force.
How are you protecting your bodily autonomy when you unalive your child in your womb?
Because if I do not want something, my body is my body, and I get that the fetus is not my body, but it is inside of my body, and it is therefore subject to any rules or regulations I place upon my body. If one of those rules is you cannot stay, then the body inside my body will have to leave.
Says who?
You are allowed to place regulations upon your own body.
Says who?
That
Can
is
you
a
substantiate
basic,
that? Who
that is
has
a basic
told you
human,
that is... How is it a basic human right? Can you explain that to me? Because I look at this situation, and I can clearly lay out to you how it would be naturally just for you to give your womb, which is designed for your child, for the good of your own child, because that is how you should act, and that is a reflection of what... Wait, hold on. That's a reflection of what justice is. And I think that's really intuitive for people to understand. But you're telling me that we have this right to bodily autonomy, and it's a human right, and it's just the way it is, and you can remove your child if you want because of this right. Well, where does that right come from? How is that supposed to be intuitive and compelling to me when I know that the act of unaliving your own child is not what you should do, and it's unjust to do?
Because it is a basic human right to dictate how your body is used. That is a fundamental. If we can't agree on that, that's like, there is no one that says you have to donate blood. There's no one that says you have to donate an organ. Now, should you?
I'm not arguing for donating blood or organs. I'm arguing that you should care for your kid. Do you think that it's good to care for your kid?
No, you just argued that I should give my uterus to this unborn child. That was your premise.
Yes. And that's what you should do. Can you explain how you shouldn't do it without appealing to bodily autonomy, which you can't substantiate at all? Can you explain to me how it would be good for a woman not to give her womb to her own child?
So now what we're getting into is the difference between how you believe a human should act versus what someone should be allowed to do. Now, if someone
the former is the meat of the discussion that you actually need to consider and contemplate. Because if it is the case that abortion is really bad for women, you probably wouldn't support it, correct?
I would support people doing what they want to do with their body. Like, I don't think are piercings good for you?
Hold on.
Let me say, if putting metal through your body, if you're getting pierced, is that necessarily good for you? A lot of people would argue no. But do I think that someone can tell someone else that you're not allowed to get a piercing? No. And that's the fundamental issue here, is that if someone comes up to you, for example, and says, hey, I really need your blood, otherwise I can't survive, you do not have to give it to them. Should you? Yeah. Why not help out your fellow man? I think you should. But should you be absolutely legally, morally obligated to? I don't think so.
Ultimately, you want a protection that is not good for women. You want the ability to be bestowed upon every single woman in this country to kill their own kid, when ultimately you can't prove that killing your own kid is good for yourself and that killing your own kid is just.
There are many instances in which it can be good for you.
Wait. The only way that you can say that it is just is by saying, well, it's because it's an attack on my bodily autonomy. But when I ask you to say what's so important about bodily autonomy, you just say, oh, it just exists. You should just know. Well, you know what I know?
No.
I know that justice is real. I witness justice in nature. I don't really know bodily autonomy outside of just this abstraction that you've brought forth today.
Well, because bodily autonomy relates to, well, what would you consider the right to life fundamental?
I would say that that is fundamental insofar as it produces justice most of the time. But surely we should treat every single person with dignity and respect because they are rational creatures. I don't need the right to life to tell me that. We've already discerned that through thousands of years of thought.
Wouldn't you argue that the ability to do what you want to your body, whether it be piercings, whether it be organ donation, wouldn't you argue that the ability to dictate that falls in line with dignity and respect for that person and their decisions for their own body?
But we're not just talking about getting a piercing. We're talking about killing your own kid. And there is where you miss the
you're
mark.
moving
You're not considering the actual
goalpost.
being involved. It's not moving the goalpost. You're talking about fundamentally different things. The degree of severity between getting a piercing and killing your own child is drastic.
Okay,
And so let me ask you this question to reframe so that maybe we can agree on something. Would you say that it would be not good for a mother to beat her own kid that's a day old? Would that be not good?
Yes, that would be not good.
And why is that not good?
Because you are causing harm to another person that is not inflicting its will or harm on you back.
And so if that's not good because you're causing harm, or rather, because you're causing harm to your child and your child's not causing harm to you, then how is it good for a mother to kill her child in the womb?
Because that child is inextricably linked to that person's body and taking resources, and they have no way to say no. So again,
wait, that's not what you said though. You changed the principle. Now that is what we call moving the goalpost. No, that's what we call moving the goalpost.
So when
you incorrectly diagnosed what I said as moving the goalpost, but then you just did it. So you said, wait, hold on.
No,
tell me if I'm
I'll
wrong.
say what I said.
Tell me if the principle's wrong. No, let me tell you what I heard, and then you can correct me if I'm wrong. Okay.
Okay.
You said that because you are causing harm to your child and your child is not causing harm to you, therefore it would be wrong to beat that kid and to cause them harm. That's what you said. That principle, when pushed to pregnancy, will hold, and it will tell you that you shouldn't unalive your own child, and that is not good to do.
Because when the fetus is inside of you, it has the propensity to do harm and change your body, take your resources in a way that it does not when it is born. You have the ability. So when I say I'm
Does
pro-choice,
pregnancy harm women? Is that what you believe?
It absolutely can. And it can.
Can you prove to me that pregnancy is harmful to women?
The fact that there's a maternal mortality rate it's like
There's also a rate of mothers who die while caring for their newborn children. There's a rate of suicide among parents. Just because people may die does not mean that the act you are partaking in is not good for you. I would like for you to explain to me how pregnancy is bad for women. That's what I want to know, because that's what you just said.
There's many different ways. There's many different ways in terms of, again, just the mortality. There's gestational diabetes. There is the permanent change to a woman's body that they might not want. Again, it is about...
Is change always bad?
That's not what I said.
So then why are you mentioning permanent change? I'm asking you to substantiate the idea that pregnancy is harmful to women, and you just said permanent change. Is permanent change always bad?
If we backtrack...
No.
If we backtrack and say, no, the thing is like, it doesn't necessarily have to be bad for it to, the change itself doesn't have to be bad for you to not want it to happen to your body. You still have the right to say, maybe I just don't want to produce milk. That's fair. If that's the reason why you don't want to be pregnant, you have
Is that a
right.
good reason not to want to be pregnant? That you don't want to produce milk? Can you explain the rationality behind that decision?
I don't have to, because again,
No, you
this
do
is
actually.
no, this is not a matter of
No, hold on. Don't move
This
away
is-
from that point. Let's talk specifically about that because I know what you're going to say. That's not a matter of that. It's a matter of bodily autonomy. You said that I don't have to substantiate why my desire is rational. That is dangerous. Think about talking to somebody
I'm
who.
sorry. I said that?
That's what you just said. You said I don't have to tell you why that desire is good. Correct? That's what you believe?
Continue. Go ahead with your
Is that
point.
what you believe? Yes or no?
I don't have to justify why a woman does not want to be pregnant
That's
because
what we're
the
talking
reasons
about. We're talking about the breast milk.
the reasons
That's
don't
why I said, let's
matter.
stay
If
on that
she does
point.
not want to be pregnant, she doesn't have to be, and her reasons are her own. You might not think they're justifiable reasons, but if she does not want to be
Just
pregnant,
because
she
you don't
should
want
not be
something
forced
doesn't
to.
mean that want is good for you. People who grape women, they might desire to do that. They might think that that's good for you. But we can prove that that's not good for women and that's not good for the grapists. We can demonstrate that to you objectively. So when I say to explain to me how this desire of not wanting to produce milk for your own child is good or rational or reasonable, I am looking for more than just the desire is present. Because we have all sorts of desires, some good, some bad.
But
What is
it's
good about
the
this?
desire. It's the desire to no longer be pregnant and have your body changed and affected in that way. And the issue is,
How is that good?
If you hold on, if the reason why it's good, if you mandate that a person's body needs to be used to sustain the life of someone else, you are now opening the floodgates to many more situations and laws that are going to encroach on someone's bodily autonomy. You're opening the
I'm not
floodgates for
talking about the
government.
law. It's a different discussion.
So okay, so let me
Somewhat
ask
of a
you,
fair
do you
point,
think?
but we're not talking about that right now.
Okay, so do you
the
believe
scope.
that you clearly don't believe that abortion is justified? So do you think that it should be illegal?
Oh, yeah. And
So
in my
then-
lifetime, there will be a federal ban against abortion. So help
So
me
for the
God.
purposes of this discussion, morality and legality are intricately linked.
No, because right now I'm talking about natural justice. If I wanted to talk to you about pragmatically how do we go about eliminating this evil from society, I would host a live and I would talk to you about it. But right now I'm talking about whether or not it is ultimately just for a mother to act in this way. So again, back to the question. Can you tell me how the desire to not want to produce breast milk for your own children is a good desire fundamentally?
It doesn't really pertain to why abortion would be justifiable or not.
Can you tell me why a mother who is currently pregnant with her own child that is healthy in her womb, that mother is valid or she has good reasoning when she decides to unalive that child? Can you tell me how that in itself is intrinsically good?
Her desire to no longer be pregnant?
Yeah, can you tell me what's good about that? Or is that an irrational desire that she shouldn't have?
I think there are plenty of reasons that you would consider justified, but again, the reasons don't matter to me. But a reason might be if someone has a high risk pregnancy that increases their risk of complications and they already have children who are born and alive, they might not want to put their own life in any kind of risk so that they can be there for their already born children.
Less than 1% of all abortions that occur. Do you have a more typical reason? Maybe a reason that touches on the fundamental approach that people have taken when they have unalived their children?
What are your sources? What are your sources that say that less than 1% happen because of the exact situation I just said?
We get all of
you have high
Planned
risk.
Parenthood releases the numbers as to why people get abortions. Now, to be clear, if you have to get some sort of medical procedure, you're not going to go to one of these dirty Planned Parenthoods to do it. You're going to go to a hospital and they're going to care for you. And there's numbers on that as well here and there. But certainly when we talk about the medical need for abortion, it's really never medically necessary. It's mostly just a talking point by the left. But we all know that that's not really the real reason why you think it's good for a woman to get an abortion. So maybe you should talk about the privileged cases, the cases that enjoy the typicalness of the situation. Can you tell me how it is good for a healthy baby to be killed in the womb and how it's good for the mother to act that way?
Because again, she's able to exercise bodily autonomy. And I think it's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope between saying that that is not justifiable and extending it into other circumstances like, well, now you are not justified in denying your kidney to someone. Now that's
It's
not
not slippery slope at
justifiable
all. But
anymore.
Leah, thank you for coming up. We've already talked about bodily autonomy. She looped back around. And I think I explained pretty well how bodily autonomy in itself allows for unjust things to happen. And I care about justice. So sure, let me give you your right to bodily autonomy. You agree that you have a right to bodily autonomy and you can use your bodily autonomy in an unjust way. Okay, I'm talking about justice. So even under your framework, you still have to address the idea of how it is just. Sure, you have a right to bodily autonomy, but you can act in an unjust way under your right. Now, that's also an incoherent definition of rights, even from a classical liberal perspective. You can't say that you have a right to do a wrong. Otherwise, we wouldn't call it a right. I don't speak, at least nowadays, in the rights language because I'm a conservative, I'm a Catholic. I think that we have better ways at viewing social issues. But that's kind of what was going on there. But we'll just keep going around with her, and so it's probably better to move on. Let's move on to the next individual. Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How do you justify abortion?
So my thing is, mind you, let's just start off that I'm a mother of 4. I've had children myself. So I'm not coming in a sense where it's like, having an abortion is not an easy decision to make as it is. I feel like women go
Never said it
through
was.
things, and it's a very hard decision to make. Everyone has their own reasons for it, and I feel like it has to be a choice. It's your body, your choice.
Are any
your
of the reasons
decision.
justified?
What do you mean?
You said that people have different reasons for getting an abortion.
Yes, some
abortion
people
being
shouldn't.
the brutal unaliving of your child and then the removal of that dead baby from the womb. What
Other
are some of
cases
the
that are
good reasons for that act?
Other cases that we're seeing nowadays where women are killing their children, there's children being abducted, raped,
You
child
have to say grape on
trafficking.
TikTok. But go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
You
Oh,
have to say grape on TikTok, but go ahead.
I'm sorry. All this stuff that's going on in the world. And there's so many cases that I see nowadays and I'm like, wow, she shouldn't have been a mother. And there's so many women that just shouldn't be moms and should have had the option to have abortions or should have had abortions. There's just so many things that go on in the world that people should have the option to have an abortion. People should have the option to be a mom or not be a mom. There's so many people that I know that are like,
I'm not for forcing people to be moms.
no, and
Never made that statement, never will.
And there's so many people that say, I'm not ready to have a child. And honestly,
Then don't have a child.
What do you mean don't have a child?
If you're not ready to have a child, then don't have sex.
Do we
Don't
know
have a child.
how the birth control thing is going? It's horrible for women.
Birth control's evil.
It's not
I'm all
only
for
evil.
letting people use it if they'd like. I'm not going to get that personal into your sex life, but certainly birth control is not good for you. So don't use it anyway.
No, yeah,
Just don't
it's
engage
horrible.
in sex
It's-
until you're ready to be married and you're ready to be a family
even
person.
if you're married,
which is good for you.
You're right. But even if you're married and you think you found the right person, sometimes having a child is a very traumatic experience for a woman. And I'm telling you as a mother, I'm not telling you, it's just don't have abortions. No, I'm telling you as a mother.
So you've said about 5 different points. None of them justify abortion. Let's just deal with the last thing you just said. Just because something is traumatic, therefore it is just to treat your child in a way that you shouldn't. I need some explanation as to how this all works out.
It just feels that women should have the choice to be a mother or not be a mother, whether or not they decided to have sex with.
Maybe you're arguing with somebody else because I'm not making the case that we should force women to be mothers. I am making the case today, like I have made on this incredible journey of almost 30 streams in a row every single day. Oh yeah, that when women become mothers, there are obligations that come with that. And you always have obligations as a rational creature, which we both are, to act how you should.
Yes.
And so for you to say that I'm talking about choosing whether or not women become mothers, you're not actually understanding the issue at hand. I'm saying that women are mothers and they should treat their children in a good way. If they don't treat their children in a good way, if they don't give their children the respect that they are owed, then we should stop that from happening.
Completely understandable, but I just don't think that there should be a reason to justify abortions. I feel like if you want to have the option to have an abortion, you should. If you don't want to have a child, then do it. I
get you feel that way. I hear this all the time from pro-choicers. I feel this way and I feel that way. I want to know your thoughts. I want to know specifically how the action itself is justified. That's what I want to know.
How is the action justified? The person having a choice to have it.
So you believe that actions are justified insofar as you choose to do them?
Yes.
And so if somebody grapes an infant, is that act justified because they chose to do that under their own volition?
No.
And so that principle doesn't make any sense. You choose to do things all the time. Sometimes they're just and sometimes they're unjust, and now you're gone. Thank you for coming up anyway. I appreciate it. Go think about it. Think about that principle that you just laid out. Obviously, you can't just do whatever you want. You can do things that are unjust. And there's going to be a degree of injustice. We may be, as a society, lenient in the matters that solely affect you. There certainly is something to be said from a view of prudence in allowing freedom among people, allowing people to have choices. I'm all for that. I'm not anti-freedom. But what I am against is killing children. I'm against that. And I have no problem being against that. I have no problem saying that that should be a federal law enacted tomorrow, that you cannot do that. That'd be a great law. It is impermissible to unalive your children. Full stop. That law goes in. We can prove that a child is a child in the womb. Boom. Abortion's gone. That's all I'm arguing today, is that it's unjust to do. You don't treat your children that way. Okay, let's move on to the next individual and hear what they have to say. As I said in the onset, everybody, if you want to join me for a really interesting talk on contraception, then jump on Twitter at 6 o'clock Eastern. I'm going to be joining a X Space where we're going to be talking about the wrongness and the evilness of contraception with a few special guests. So I would love to have you over there. Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
I am good. How do you justify abortion?
Well, I was only on here for the last two women that were up here, so I'm not really sure where the lady that just got off, where she was kind of rambling with it. But of course, me being a mother myself, I'm sure many mothers give and want the option for abortion. So I guess to answer your question in my own words, how to justify it, I would say justifying it in the sense of, great, or if there's incest, things on that line where it wasn't by choice, if that makes sense. It wasn't like, I'm just having a one-night stand with this gentleman. I went out, blah, blah, blah. That was my choice. Whereas, go ahead. Sorry, were you going to say something?
What percentage of abortions do you think occur due to people who were raped or cases of incest?
Yeah, no, I'm sure that is very low. I was just speaking on the justification, and justifying it in my eyes. Those would be my reasoning.
So outside of that, you would be pro-life? You think that two adults, they get together, they have consensual sex, they create a baby, and they just want to unalive the baby because they don't think they have enough money or because they want to family plan, that would be unjustifiable?
I can't say that, because in the sense, let's just say that is the scenario. Two people that are together in a relationship, live together, don't live together, they ultimately get pregnant. And because of any of those reasons that you just listed, that is their reasoning for wanting the abortion. I feel, what would be the benefits of bringing that child in to their family's home to now be another statistic, to now be...
I'm not sure if you mean benefits there in the sense that how much money is this child going to make when they're 16 years old, or if you mean the benefits from a moral sense of what is good to do and what's going to lead to your own perfection and the good of your own child. Because on the latter, certainly it would be good to preserve human life. On the former, it may be the case that you could make some utilitarian calculation and say, this child as a commodity, not a human being, is only worth this amount of money to me. But I think that's a really bad way to view children.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely not saying it as in view them in the benefit of, how much they're going to make you at any certain point of their life. More so in the sense of the benefit, okay, they don't have money to provide for this child. They don't have and I'm just stating the examples
That's good reasoning, though. Do you really feel in your soul that that's a good reason to kill your kid?
Yes, because now this kid is coming into the life of parents that not only were questioning that if they even wanted this child, but now there's another child in the system of being in a foster care, being lost in the system. I've seen that plenty of times as well. So is that
should we unalive all the kids in foster care?
Because
are you saying that it would have been better for the kids in foster care to have been aborted?
No, I'm definitely not saying. I'm speaking on the scenario
so
you
then
just stated.
Why does it matter that kids are going into foster care. You're saying that you support abortion because some people don't have enough money and there's kids in foster care. I am deducing that you think it'd be better to abort children than to allow them to live and maybe have some suffering, but at least get the chance to experience
From
good.
suffering, what about the traumatic events that will happen to that child's parents? What about the traumatic events that will happen if they do go to
I'm not
foster
for
care?
traumatic events, but I
Yeah,
also
but that's
won't
what would
deny
happen.
that unaliving a child is a traumatic event. Your
Yeah,
hands
I'm
are
not
not
denying
clean
that.
when you do an abortion. You're unaliving an innocent child.
Yes, no, I'm not denying that. It is very traumatic. And, some people do have moral issues behind that, which is understandable. But in my eyes, justifying it based under you being a male, not knowing what a woman would
How do you
go
know that?
through. And I'm speaking in general. I'm not speaking you in
But
person.
how do you know I'm a male?
I'm speaking in
just
general.
assumed that. You didn't even ask my
I'm
pronouns. I'm
speaking in
offended.
general. I'm speaking in general. You were in 2024. I'm speaking in general. I'm not speaking.
You're speaking
you
in general. You
personally.
didn't even ask my pronouns. Come on,
Again, I
man.
didn't have to ask you your pronouns because I'm speaking in general as a
You don't have to ask me my
male.
pronouns.
No,
Come on,
I don't.
man.
I don't. I was born in 1984. I don't have
I'm
to ask
giving
you
you.
your
I'm giving you the
pronouns.
Joe Biden treatment. Come on, man.
That's
All right, go
fine.
ahead.
But I was speaking in general. I'm just saying as a man, not you in particular. I'm just saying any man on the earth should not have or a woman should not have to justify or give reasons why she doesn't want to be a mother, why she doesn't want to go through the traumatic
She is a mother.
experience. Right. Why she doesn't want to carry on the pregnancy to be a mother. She's not a mother until the
Respectfully,
baby.
your reasoning is just not good.
Okay,
Because
that's-
your
that's
reasoning can be
fine.
applied to support infanticide.
Regardless,
Do you
what I
understand
was
that?
saying,
The idea
men
that you can
shouldn't
unalive.
be
Excuse me. Hold
able
on.
to
Hold
get
on.
rights
Hold on. Can you
against
tell
any
me?
woman.
Can you
You
tell me?
don't-
Wait.
no
Hold on.
man
Hold
can
on.
say anything
Whoa. You don't
about
talk about
what a
hold on,
woman
hold on.
goes through. So therefore, men
I know what women go
should
through. I'm not a
no,
woman, so I'm not going to
good.
experience everything they
And-
go through, but I can get a sense of it. What I want to know is what is the difference in principle between unaliving your kid in the womb because you don't have enough money and unaliving your kid outside of the womb because you don't have enough money? What is the significant difference there? The principal difference. What is substantially different, you could say, between those situations that tell you that one is good and one is bad?
You don't have to go through that. What do you mean? There's a big difference there. You're saying in the sense of having
That
a
doesn't answer
child
the
and going
question.
through. I did
Why
answer.
can't you answer that question?
Go
Why can't you
ahead.
answer that question? Is it
Answer-
because you know
answer
that they're
again.
the same?
They're not. They're completely different.
How are they different then?
Ask your question again, so you
How?
can make sure that
In
I know what you're
principle.
saying. In principle,
It's totally fair.
yes.
In principle,
Mm-hmm.
how is it different unaliving your child in the womb because you don't have enough money and unaliving your child out of the womb because you don't have enough money? What is the significant difference there?
There is a difference because the child's embryo, whatever you want to call the child within the womb, you can say it's alive, but it's not here within us. There's a difference between somebody laying down and
No,
being
ma'am.
put under. Wait, let me finish. There's a difference, and maybe in your eyes because it's moral, regardless, there's a heartbeat. But there's a difference between a mother standing in front of her child and taking a knife and unaliving the child in front of her. That is a difference. Whereas
So-
you're laying
ahead.
down, you're taking however much time, I don't know, because I've never been through the process, however much time it is to go to sleep, wake up, be done with it. There's no involvement besides.
Is that you trying to
feelings.
describe an abortion?
Yeah, it was. So
You know, let's get back into the discussion. But if you could, I would just love this, person to person.
yeah,
After this discussion, go to my link tree and go to one of the first links under my abortion section of my link tree and watch the video that shows all of the abortion procedures. Please
No,
just do that for
I-
me.
I have
wait,
been
wait,
there.
wait. You,
I
because
have
you don't even
been
know
there.
what you don't even know what it is. You just the way you
and
described
you
it shows that you don't know what you're talking about.
I have been through, and I didn't want to put this out there, but I have been through
No,
the
no, hold on.
process.
Just please
So
watch.
it-
Please
it's-
just watch
you're-
that
you're-
video. Everyone watch that
so
video. It's a great
what's
video.
your-
It's
what's
not
your
too graphic.
pronouns? Let me ask you, since I'm not being
I want to get
rude.
back to the discussion, though. I don't want to just gloss over those
exactly.
points
But
and
now
act
you don't
like it
want to
weren't
answer
important.
because I'm asking you
No,
your
I'll
pronouns.
answer any question you have.
So what are
I
your
just put that
pronouns?
out there because obviously you're confused about what an abortion is.
What are
But
your pronouns? You can't take ruthless videos off of the internet and say that you can tell somebody what an abortion or how the process goes through from somebody
What?
that's actually been there and done that. That's what I'm saying.
Excuse
so
me.
I'm
Excuse
asking
me.
you,
I want
what
to talk
are
about the
your
principles that you
pronouns?
just laid out.
What
I think
are
that it's.
your
I think that it's
pronouns? You are a male, and any other male has no right on any.
Well, I'm glad you're finally
woman's
asking for my
right
pronouns.
body
I feel a little bit
anything.
better about the conversation now. If we may, I want to thank you so
What
much.
are they?
I want to ask
So what
you
are your
about
pronouns?
what you just said.
What are your pronouns? What are your pronouns?
I want to talk about what you just said.
Right.
Can we
You
talk about the
can't answer
conversation
because
again?
You're a male.
I
Once
told you
again,
that I
just
was going to get
another
back to the
Trump
discussion.
supporter
I told you
trying to overpower.
I am a Trump supporter. I have no problem supporting that man. He's a very great
women,
man.
Like I said,
it's not overpowering you. I'm still letting you
women
talk.
and their rights.
Okay. So, back to the discussion at hand. I think it's remarkable that after 10 minutes, you finally talked about what the child is in the womb. And this is the work that the pro-lifers have to pry through. They have to struggle to get pro-choicers to finally admit that we're talking about some sort of organism in the womb. And you might not have admitted that, but it's so hard to actually get to the substance of the conversation because of all these stupid talking points of killing the kid because of finances or just not wanting the kid and that being completely valid or whatever you want to do is good. Those are also so stupid. But eventually, through hard work, you actually get down to talking about what the child is, that whatness. And I would have loved to talk to her more, but she got the swan. But what I was going to ask her is, how is that organism different? Is there anything substantially different between that organism in the womb and outside the womb? Because if so, it might be okay to treat that organism differently. But what you will find is that essentially, in essence, the organism is the same. Sure, things have been actualized that were potential within the organism, but that doesn't matter because we don't value just the actualization of things. We don't just value the fact that when you're a child, you can thirst and you can eat and you can do all these things. We value that you are of the human species, which is significant because it's the rational kind. Okay. So that's what I wanted to get to, but you know, I'm glad that she finally got to the pronouns because I was really offended by it. You know, she didn't even ask me. She just assumed I was a man. I don't know if it was the mustache or what, but you can't do stuff like that. Come on. All right, let's move on to the next individual. If you guys want to join our growing community, feel free to join us at discord.gg/James. Just discord.gg/James. Link is also in my bio. Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I am good. How do you justify abortion?
I justify it through bodily autonomy. The only difference that I've heard between my stance and like how others who have come up before me is that I'm more of like a forced evictionist sort of role in it. Whereas, you know, you evict them because you don't want the pregnancy anymore. If they, you know, perish because they're non-viable, then they do. And if they survive, then great.
Why should a mother unalive her child or evict her child from the womb?
Because I believe that anyone has the right to their own body. I also don't know if we would
But why should they actualize that right by unaliving their child or by pushing their child out of their womb? Why should they do that? Can you give me some?
Because they want to end the infringement upon, like, inside their body. They don't want to be pregnant anymore. That's
It's an infringement on their body? A child in the womb is an infringement on a woman's body. That's what you believe?
It's that's why I mean, not be the best word choice. I believe that the baby is an unwanted organism inside the woman, and she has the right to remove someone from her body who she does not
Is that
want.
a legitimate feeling? The idea that the mother doesn't want her unborn baby in her womb? Would you say that that's reasonable for her to think?
Yeah, I would say that's reasonable.
How so? Can you substantiate that?
I'm confused. Does it matter?
It does matter because sometimes I want things that aren't good for me. And so I'm asking you, how is it reasonable for the mother not to want her own unborn child in her womb?
Tons of reasons that have already been said on here before me. Reasons of they don't want it because they already have other mouths to feed. Reasons of they don't want this baby to continue growing because they're concerned about complications that they may have experienced in past pregnancies.
So on the first reason, let's go one by one. It is reasonable for a mother not to want her unborn child in her womb, which is the perfect environment for her child, and which is the best way that she can mother that child in that moment. I think you would agree with. It is reasonable for her not to want that because she has other children to take care of?
Yeah, I believe it's reasonable. You also keep saying like it's her child, but someone who doesn't want to be pregnant isn't going
Wait.
to do them as their
Just to be
child.
clear, it's the best thing for the child, and it's the best way a mother can be a mother to her own child. And you think it's reasonable to get rid of this reality?
Yeah, I definitely think it's reasonable because of what I've already stated. Just like in surrogacy, if it's not her child, but it's a baby growing in there and she doesn't want this baby to grow in there anymore, she has the right to remove it from her body. But again, I'm all fine and dandy with doing
I get that you think that she has a right. I think that's incredibly unintuitive to people. Would she be a good mother for removing her unborn baby who needs her womb to survive, which is biologically related to her? It is her child. Would she be objectively a good mother by removing her child from her womb?
It can be biologically related to her, all whatever. That doesn't mean that someone sees it as their child, and we don't legally recognize it as the child. And
That didn't answer the question. Would she be a good mother by removing her child from her womb?
I don't care because it pertains to whether she even wants to be.
You don't care? You don't want to answer that question? Why don't you want to answer that question?
Well, I just don't think it matters. I mean, I don't think she's a bad.
Okay, maybe it doesn't matter. Can you tell me if she would be a good mother by removing her own child from her womb?
Okay, let's say that she doesn't even identify with being the mother to this child. She doesn't want this to be a mother. So
why do you have to change the question to answer the question? Why can't you just say whether or not it's good for a mother to act this way?
Because not all people who are pregnant are going to end up being mothers to that baby.
What? Why can't you just answer the question or say that there's something inherently wrong about the way I'm asking it? Why can't you just directly face it and accept that it's not good for a mother to act this way?
I don't think it matters because I think motherhood is a choice. So
I get you don't think it matters, but you're being disingenuous by not answering the question or saying that there's something wrong with it.
I just don't. Just like with any other bodily autonomy case, and you probably know the violinist one, I wouldn't say it's good or bad. I wouldn't say it's good or bad to disconnect. I'd say okay, you're doing what you want with your body. And
so the principle that a mother should care for her child is neither good nor bad? A mother caring for her child is neither good nor bad.
In pregnancy
under your view.
Or in general?
In general. That's the way I asked it.
Yeah, I think caring for your child is great.
And so a mother caring for her child through allowing her unborn baby to be in her womb, that now you can't say is good, you say is neutral? How does that work? She's caring for her child by allowing her baby to use the place that was designed for it.
Again, this goes with us recognizing it as her child. Yet you clearly from conception recognize that.
Am I being inaccurate by that assessment?
I think you're answering it through your own lens. So is it inaccurate? No. But is it through your lens? Yes. Because again, just because the child's there doesn't mean it's a child who is wanted to be born for this person to be a mother.
You basically just said that what you're saying is true, and you also happen to be perceiving that it's true. Well, I know that. That's what I've been saying. I'm right.
I think it's a subjective truth. So just like you can say that and
it's a subjective truth.
Just because I'm not saying it's an absolute truth when I say, yeah, I believe you that you believe that. That's what I'm saying.
I didn't doubt that you believe that I believe things. I knew that you would at least acknowledge that I do have thoughts, but I would like to know how I'm wrong. That's what I would like to know.
So do you believe that every pregnancy is, you believe surrogacy exists? Yes?
I understand surrogacy exists. I'll ask you one more time, and then I'll give you an opportunity to ask me any questions that you like, because it sounded like you might have had something before. How is it good for a mother to deny her womb from her fetus?
I believe it's good because she's exercising her right to bodily autonomy, and I believe that right should be protected for all humans. So I think it's good that we have that available for someone who no longer wants to be.
And bodily autonomy is your ability to self-govern?
Ability to self-govern, yeah.
And can you use your ability to self-govern to do unjust things and things that are not good?
I wouldn't say that terminating a pregnancy is...
No. Don't dodge another question. Can you use your ability to self-govern to do unjust things and things that are good? Or is the idea that you purely actualize bodily autonomy, does that make every action that you do good?
I don't think it makes any action good, just like with the case of there's a child
There you
that's
go.
not
So you
your
can't appeal to
child.
it then. You can't just say you're violating my bodily autonomy and therefore it's wrong. Well, you just said
No,
that bodily
the
autonomy doesn't always
difference
make
here-
something good.
Sir, the difference here is that we're arguing about what we believe these things should be protected via laws, right? Because you want to ban abortion.
No, we're
right?
not. That's not the difference here. That's not the difference
Well,
here.
if you'd let me
I'm not talking about the
continue,
law,
then I
madam.
can
I'm not talking
tell
about
you
it.
what I was about to say, and then you
Go
can
ahead,
tell me.
finish.
Okay,
ahead.
thank you. Okay, so you would say, okay, first off, you would say that it's morally wrong to be mean to people for no reason, right?
Yeah, that's wrong to do.
We wouldn't legally make it illegal to be mean to people or that you have to be nice to people, right?
Sure.
Okay, so then going onward, so that means that like morality or what we might perceive as what is the moral thing to do doesn't necessarily correspond to what we're going to legalize or illegalize,
False.
right?
Everything that we make legal has to have a principle behind it. And
Yes,
so
but
what
not
you
every
just demonstrated,
principle-
excuse me, what you just demonstrated is that there are degrees of goodness and there are degrees at which goodness is privated from something. There can be a privation of good, and we can say that that is a great privation of good, and that is a lesser degree at which good has been lost from some action. And so, which is all to say that there are levels to how evil you are acting. And certainly there are some evils that we do punish. So that idea that you just presented doesn't actually do what you think it does.
Dude, I was just going into something else. Like, I'm just like showing that morality or what we view as moral doesn't necessarily justify a legal thing being put in place. That's all I'm
And
saying.
I'm not talking about the law, but that's just not true what you just said.
Okay,
The
so-
law is formed from what is naturally true. We get the principles from our reasoning, which is accessible without the law. We don't need the human law to tell us how to reason. We reason naturally.
Yes, we reason naturally. I'm not saying that we need the law to reason. I'm saying that just because we can reason about morality doesn't mean for everything that we might view as immoral comes with a law. Yes? So
Yes, but there's different degrees of wrongness.
and we can go into that. So like then we go into like this fountain scenario, right? A child, not your child, is drowning in a fountain. You see it. The question is like, should any person be obligated to risk their own life or to, do something to themselves in order to save this child? I think there's an argument there, but like, I don't believe as of right now that we can, and we don't.
Well, let's paint the situation. You're walking by and you see a 3-year-old child face down in a pond, obviously needing help. Let's not even talk about the law right now. What
sure.
should you do in that moment?
I would say what morally ought to be done is that we should try to save the child.
And
However,
if somebody didn't save that child's life, would they be considered a good person?
I wouldn't consider them an awesome person, but I also
Right. And so
wouldn't
that's all
go to jail.
we agree there. Basically, what you're saying is that not only is that all true, but we should give somebody the protection to walk by. We should make it legal so that when you see somebody drowning that needs help and there is objectively a way that you should always act if you're a good person, that we should give you the protection to act how you shouldn't. What? Doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I
And
am
you've
okay
drawn
with
me
it.
into the legal conversation that I didn't want to have, but that whole idea does not follow. If something is not morally good to do, then why are we giving you the protection to do it?
Again, just because something is morally wrong, like we already said, of like being mean to someone or whatever, or doesn't mean that it ought to be illegal, right? So
I didn't make that statement.
I did. So just like I might believe that it's morally wrong to leave that child drowning, I also don't believe that we can legislate making it illegal and then penalizing anyone who did walk by or who was too scared to go in, because that
Is
goes
abortion right or wrong? Is abortion right or wrong? Is abortion right or wrong?
Overall, I'd say it's. I'd say
Just
it's.
say it.
Right.
You know it's wrong.
I
You
mean,
know
I
it's
don't
wrong.
even like that wording, right or wrong. Like,
What are you talking about? You're the first person that said it in this conversation. You brought up rights. I don't talk about rights.
yeah, but rights and if saying is this right is not the same thing, and you know that. You know that when I say rights, I'm not saying.
So then what's a
this
right?
is
Explain what a right is.
A right is a. What is it? It's a. I'm trying to find the words. It's something that should be protected for humans, something that we ought to be able to
If somebody exercises a right, was that right of them to do? Is it good for somebody to use a right?
Right that they have, then I
That's
would
right,
say
right?
it's right in terms of law. Would we say it's right in terms of morality? I don't know. You know, depends on the situation. Because,
Okay.
like that person just said, because there's nuance in the comments. But
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to say before I drop you down?
yeah, so just for example, for self-defense claims between you and me, let's say, you're aggressing upon me, and maybe in that same a video is being taken from someone else. And let's say in that same video, there's gonna be a lot of people watching it. And in their opinion, I didn't have to shoot you because you were all up in my business and I was freaked out by you because you're a crazy person, which isn't too far from the truth, right? Am I right or am I right?
I would never harm a woman. Anybody I wouldn't harm, but certainly I would never lay hands on a woman.
But I don't know you and I can't take you for your word, right? So I might be scared. So I might shoot you. And so other people, they might be like, hey, I know that guy. He's the greatest guy ever. He's a Catholic and he would have never hurt you. You didn't have to do that.
I'm a dirty sinner, but I would never hurt you, yeah.
But legally, it would be right in self-defense.
I'm not talking about legality, though. You keep trying to drag me into that conversation. I want to talk about what is objectively not good and good. But thank you for coming up. I do want to move it on because, trust me, I've had hundreds of these conversations. I think that I've made some pretty good points against you, but at some point, you just got to move on because you're just not getting it. We've talked about at the beginning that, sure, you have a right to bodily autonomy if you say so, even though you can't substantiate that. But let's say you do, you can still use your bodily autonomy in a wrong way. You can still use your bodily autonomy in an unjust way, and you weren't answering the questions that pertain directly to the goodness or the justice in doing what you're doing. And that's what I care about. So not really worth continuing on there. But I do appreciate you coming up. You were a very friendly person, and I enjoyed that. Crystal, hello. How are you?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, good. I had just looked back at my phone.
How do you justify abortion?
I don't.
You're pro-life?
Yes, of course.
Nice. Crystal, in 15 seconds, tell us why you're pro-life.
Because you made the decision to have sex. By the time you find out you're pregnant, it's already a living being. If it's not a living being, we would bleed. We would have to go to the hospital and they will automatically have to terminate it. So, and it already has a heartbeat. So I don't understand why women say, well, it's our body. When you become pregnant, at that moment, it shouldn't even be about you. It's about your baby. It's no longer about you. And so I hate when women be like, it's my right. It's my decision on what I should do with my body. Okay, your main concern is that your body's in a good state so your baby can be born.
Crystal, are you a mom?
Of 3 boys. And
you're probably a really good mom because you're thinking about life the right way. And you probably have a pretty good life, is my guess.
That's how it should be for all women. All women, when we become pregnant, we are not thinking about ourselves no more. We're so concerned because, like, when I became pregnant the first time, then the second time, and then the third time, I was worried about I was worried about, my baby, having a, what you call it? My brain trying to go.
Don't worry about it. Just me and you in here.
My brain, okay. So basically, I was worried about, like a lot of women say, I lost my baby. See, that's what I was worried about. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm perfect. I said, I'm not ready to be a mom. I got pregnant when I was 21, so I had my baby at 22 the first time. And I was like, you know what, fuck it, because at the end of the day, you made the choice, Crystal, to have sex. And at the end of the day, it's time to take responsibility. And at the end of the day, I have a conscience. So whether I wanted the baby or not, I have a conscience. And so if something happens to me and when my time goes, I know where I'm going. And this ain't about being religious, but it's just common sense.
Well, Crystal, I want to talk to opposition. I want to talk to opposition, but I really appreciate you. You're a superstar. And I would just hope that especially the younger girls that are listening to this, maybe they're in college or whatever. I think that's a pretty big demographic here. I would hope that they would heed your advice because you're doing it and you're enjoying it. And like you said, you also had doubts about being a mother, but it turns out that being a mother is pretty awesome and being selfless is good for you.
Yeah,
So
it's just I just hate when a lot of people say it's not murder. It's taking away our rights. How's it taking away your right when you decided to do what you did to get to that point? And nobody, the women don't have to agree with me. That's fine, but at the end of the day, do everything you can to prevent yourself from getting pregnant. First off, knowledge. Learn what it takes to not have a baby. Get on contraceptives. Use condoms. Now, don't get me wrong. I know all of that stuff can still fail, but that's still where accountability comes in. So at the end of the day, whether you did all of the things you need to do to prevent pregnancy, at the end of the day, accountability. You still decided to fuck. You still
Crystal, thank you
decided
for
to fuck.
Crystal, thank you for coming up. I appreciate it.
No problem.
W Crystal in chat, everybody. We love moms around here. We love the fact that people are, frankly, growing up and accepting their obligations and saying, you know what? I can do this. I can do what I should do. And ultimately, when you do that, you're going to be a lot happier. That's probably one of the more pleasant guests that I've talked to in the last few days. Not to insult anybody I've talked to today, because people have been wonderful, and I talked to wonderful pro-choicers, but you can tell, life is good for Crystal. She's a mom. It's all the best to Crystal. Thank you for coming up. I do appreciate it. Let's move on to the next individual and hear what they have to say. Also, the time is 5:48 on the East Coast. I will be getting out of here after 6 to go talk about contraception on Twitter. If you want to see that conversation, and I think that you do, because it'll be fantastic, I will be talking with some individuals, including a doctor, on this issue. And you can find that conversation by going over to my Twitter and dropping me a follow, and you'll be notified when I'm in the space. Okay, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. How do you justify abortion?
So I don't think abortion is right, but I think it's up to people's decision and people's choice. I think Chris's points, her being a mum, fantastic. That's great for her. But that was her decision to be a mother.
But are you able to justify abortion?
How am I able to justify it? So there's medical reasons as to why people get abortion. I think abortion has a really, really horrible word. Ectopic pregnancies, first of all, there's a lot of research and a lot of proof.
How do you treat an ectopic pregnancy?
So an ectopic pregnancy means that the egg is within the
No, I know what it is, and it's not an egg. I know what an ectopic pregnancy is. I'm asking you, how do you treat it? You're saying that abortions treat ectopic pregnancies. How does that work?
So because of an ectopic pregnancy, what it means is if the mother brings brings the child to whatever full term, they'll actually die because it's going to burst their fallopian tube, right?
It can happen in a different organ as well, including the abdomen. But can you explain to me how do you treat that? What abortion procedure do you use to treat that?
So it's prevented by taking. Honestly, I cannot remember off the top of my head. At the end of the day,
but you are confident that a type of abortive procedure is used to treat ectopic pregnancies?
Okay, then tell me what happens.
Well, just to be clear, that's what you came in thinking.
It's one of the reasons as to why people have.
And so, just so you know, you don't treat an ectopic pregnancy with abortive care. A way that you can treat an ectopic pregnancy, if you want to talk about a procedure, would be a salpinectomy. You remove the fallopian tube that's going to burst. And that's not abortive care.
Not all the time. That's actually incorrect.
That's not. I never said it's all the time, because there's also medication that you can take that would help lead to the child dissolving, or the child might just dissolve naturally.
But that's a form of abortion. That's the problem.
No, that's not a form of abortion. I just gave it a term. That's not abortion. What are the main forms of abortion?
Medication is a form of abortion. Determinating from what people's arguments is.
Madam, I'm not. So what's important about what I just said? Hold on. Let's rescope the conversation. What's important about what I just said is the fact that, in principle, that's not what an abortion is. Now, it might be coded that way, but I am not trying to get rid of that, and I'm having a principled discussion.
Yeah,
and just to be clear, every single state that has enacted. I know you don't sound like you're from America, but maybe you live in the States.
I'm an American citizen, so actually.
Oh, great. Sorry. Well, no, that's a beautiful thing that you have an accent and I can't tell.
But it's an assumption. That's okay. We make assumptions.
So, in the United States, all of the states that have enacted strong pro-life legislation, we have not gotten rid of treatment for ectopic pregnancies. So this is not a point that I'm really that interested in, besides just telling people that they have been misled about this because it's a talking point and people like to throw jabs at us.
It's one of the
Can you tell-
reasons. It's one of the reasons. There's a ton of other reasons as to why people decide to get it. It's if it's an inviable fetus, if it's dangerous to the woman to bring the baby to birth, if it's going
These
to be
are all
born.
very small amounts of cases that happen with abortion.
Absolutely, that's absolutely fine. And also the argument of rape is really small as well. I'm agreeing with you. I'm not saying abortion is the answer. I'm not saying I agree with it 100%. I'm just.
But I'm asking you to justify it.
The thing is, the justification is taking away people's right, and some doctors.
That's not a right.
But it
What even is a right? Can you tell me what a right is?
Yes, oh my God. I just took my citizenship exam. I'm very unaware of what the citizens' rights are and all this crazy
What country,
stuff.
if you don't mind me asking, what country did you come from?
I came from England. And
Very nice. I love that England's government is very
Let's not talk about England's
focused.
government.
Well, no, let me just make a point. No, I'm being charitable. Hold on.
I was in the middle of my point. At the end of the
Go
day,
ahead.
I don't think abortion is the answer. At the end of the day, I think the option for people to choose is so important. If we told you, oh, you guys can't
But
have
the option to hold on, you gotta actually talk about what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
sure,
Okay,
sure,
you don't
sure.
want me to talk about England, fine. I was gonna give you guys a compliment. I love how the laws are formed through this great tradition. Whereas here in America, we're really addicted to this classical liberal sense of rights, and I think it's kind of silly. But anyway, let's talk about this idea that abortion is justified. Yes or no, are you able to justify abortion today?
Yes.
And how do you justify the act of unaliving the child in the womb?
For medical reasons and for
Let's say I gave you those exceptions. Let's say I gave you medical reasons, rape, and incest. Is abortion ever justifiable outside of that?
In my opinion, no. And if we're talking medical, but the thing is, some people don't think the medical and the fact that some doctors, no, let me finish. Some doctors are afraid of performing natural, like, surgeries to the point where people are almost dying because they have unviable fetuses in their stomach and they're almost dying from sepsis. That's genuinely terrifying, and it's not fair. And women shouldn't have to go through that absolutely traumatic experience. I beg.
I don't want women to go through that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad we agree with that. And that's the thing. Like, if everybody was like, if your doctor makes the decision.
How does a woman get sepsis? How does that happen?
When sepsis can happen for multiple reasons.
When we're talking about a pregnancy.
At the end of the day, I think abortion is okay if it's done by a professional.
We can't nail down any points with you because you just move on to something else. I'm trying to talk about one thing at a time.
You're not letting me finish I'm saying abortion.
Well, the problem is that I could let you finish all of your sentences, but then you'll say 10 different things and then we'll never actually have a discussion.
Okay,
You just said that women need
Let-
abortion because of sepsis? How does that work?
You're twisting my words there, sir.
But I'm talking
Zed.
about abortion. Are you
Yeah.
saying that I'm trying to deny some other medical care for sepsis? Are you talking about DNCs?
Oh my God, there's a
Scraping
multitude
dead
of-
babies out of the womb? That's fine. You can do that. If your baby tragically dies, you can do that.
If a doctor viably says first of all, it's not safe for you to bring it to term, and the fact that women have to, wait for the child to die in their stomach, and they already want this child, right? They're not arguing against it, and it's taking away that right and that healthcare. That's where I have the problem.
Well, you can't tell me what a right is, and you're calling it a right. That's really fascinating. But you think that abortion is not you think outside of these medical cases, you think that abortion is not justifiable. So that's going to account for 98% of abortions that occur in the United States of America every single year. Hundreds of thousands of children. Wait, hold on. Hundreds of thousands of children. Hundreds of thousands of children are being unalived every single year. You think that that's unjustifiable. Can I ask you, why is that unjustifiable?
Oh my God, do we even go into the option of do you know how many children are in the system right now? How many people need adoption?
Should we unalive those children because they're in the system?
At the end of the day, if people aren't wanted and if people do not have the funds to be able to bring these people in, do we know that those kids aren't going to go into crime and increase crime?
Wait, the idea there being we protect you on the amount of... Am I not supposed to talk to you about an issue today? We literally... Wait, hold on. I know how it may seem to some, especially the pro-choicers. But the problem is that you are saying so many different things. And I'm trying to talk about one thing. And every time I do, you're like, oh, I just moved to America. Or, no, you're not letting me finish my sentences. I can't just let you come up here and just say whatever you want and then just leave. That's not the point of this. The point is to get down to the reasoning, get down to the meat of the discussion. Okay? So I would love just like one idea to be fully cashed out between us. That's the idea here, right? If it was an interview, if I wanted to hear what you had to say, long form, all of your thoughts, Abigail, I would invite you up. I'd ask you a question. I'd sit back. And when I had another question, I would ask you. But we're not doing that type of forum right now. We are doing a discussion on this material about whether or not abortion is justified. So you might have to jump in and ask me questions. I might have to jump in and ask you questions. But if we don't, and you just filibuster, then we're never going to get anywhere. You can unmute. But I just want to know, does that mean that we shouldn't allow kids in foster care?
What the problem is that you're focusing on one word that I'm saying. Last I said a right, and you went off on one about, rather than the actual topic, you focus on a...
You don't think that it's important for you to define right, the word that you're using to defend your position?
Right, okay. It's very interesting how your approach is that you just focus on one word rather than when you don't like to hear something. Anyway,
wait, just to be clear, you don't think that you should have to tell me what a right is, even though you're using it to defend your ideas?
But hold on a sec. I'm losing internet for...
Okay, well, we will just move on because it is almost 6 o'clock and I do gotta do that space with individuals. I appreciate you for coming up, Abigail. Thank you so much. If you guys want to support me, one of the best ways to do so is by joining my Discord server. That's going to be at discord.gg/James, discord.gg/James, discord.gg/James. We are a growing community. We are approaching 400 people, which is super based and awesome. Also, if you watch my streams frequently and you want to see me stay on TikTok, go follow my backup account at James Weigel 2, JamesWeigel 2 on TikTok. It's also linked in my bio. This will enable me to go live if something happens to this account. I will be on X in a few moments here to discuss this idea of contraception. Against conception. Against the idea of conception. Conception in itself is good. It is good to conceive. It is good to create children. To be against something that is good is wrong. And in essence, that is simply the argument against contraception. Now, of course, it goes more in depth than that, but if you want a flavor of it, there you go. What's your Twitter so we can see? At James__Weigel. It might be 2 underscores, but it's also linked in my link tree. It's also an announcement on the Discord server. So if you're not in there, join. You're not entitled to an opinion on abortion? You're not entitled to an opinion on whether or not I can have an opinion. Alrighty. Okay. So I think that'll be it. Does anyone want to say anything before I bounce? Always a man talking about a woman's right. We are just talking about a very important issue about unaliving kids. We don't want that to happen. Do you do anything else but to tell women what to do with their bodies all day? I'll debate you. I'd love to real quick. I know so many of you guys just want to talk to me, but the reality is that I do this every day, and you will have an opportunity if you just keep showing up and requesting. Okay. That'll be it. I'll see you guys over on Twitter. I appreciate your support as always. Have a peaceful and restful night, and I will see you tomorrow. God bless.